sync with everyone, see what's happening and what we have to do for this week. And also, well, I have something to talk about a bit later. In distractions, no, at the moment. I'll pass it to Ask Laser.
Thanks. My intentions are just to catch up with you guys and to get more in touch with the team and what's happening. And distractions, I am doing an illustration that I need to finalize today. And back to you, Gideon.
Okay, so no distractions really. Intentions are pretty much in the agenda. Basically, sync on communications priorities. Walk you all through some of the kind of the priorities and primary benefits from the proposal for coordination team season 2. That's the funding proposal. I'm hoping to get that up sooner than what I was thinking originally. So, shutting off conviction voting, just what some of the next steps are. Talk a little bit about the small grants program. There's just a few things that Isaac and I have been chatting about. I thought might be good to, if we have time, to touch on some of those with the whole group. And then, if we have time, Discord, just kind of a check-in. How's it working for everybody? And then reputation, if we really have time at the end, just chat a little bit about the various things that are going on. Does anybody else have anything else that we should touch on?
I don't know if it's included in the agenda or maybe I missed it. But I wanna know if you read the token engineering stakeholder study, and yeah, like I know we were somehow discussing of turning down the conviction voting, but there are still proposals coming. So yeah, I don't know. Just wanted to have that on the agenda.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I just wanted to
go ahead.
Sorry, Gideon. I apologize. I just wanted to actually finish what you're thinking.
Oh, I was just going to respond to Honka. That's absolutely right. That's one of the things I want to talk about with conviction voting. We have a few. Yeah, timing of turning off conviction voting is going to be, it's like a little bit tricky because we don't want to harm any proposals that are coming through. I was going back and forth with Livia about this yesterday, and yeah, so this is part of what we have to talk about. That's a really good point, Honka.
Yeah, I was going to say I have that document that Tam and Griff and Livia and going through the advice process of posting it to the forum. I think I might do that today. I gave them enough time to make their comments and incorporating those into the forum post about the future of conviction voting. But with that being said, the snapshot recently with the strategic framework has brought up something that I just mentioned to Bear yesterday. Maybe thinking about making a push to actually put into practice delegation. It's something that we haven't really put any focus on within our governance strategy, but I think it would be really nice to actually incorporate that at some point in the short to midterm, to kind of say, hey, let's have a delegation, have people nominate themselves as delegates, and see if we can get people to delegate their tokens to make a more robust governance structure.
Something very quick on that is that the good thing about turning conviction voting off is that TAO voting by default has delegation. The interface is probably not the prettiest, but you can delegate your tokens for TAO votings. And so, yeah, probably as part of the whole turning off conviction voting, we can try to get some of the less engaged stakeholders to delegate something to some of us or something like that, just so that we are covered.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, this fits in. We probably won't have time today, but Tam is taking the advisory network idea and pushing that forward. Actually, after ETH Denver, she's got a few things going in March, so realistically, probably towards the end of March and early April, she's going to be making a push on this advisory network. And we've been thinking about whether over time we use that as a way to build kind of like a subnet within that, or a kind of like governing stakeholders and using delegation as kind of a way of doing that. So doesn't have to be linked. We can just do delegation, but just it's kind of an interesting idea. Yeah, I was kind of yeah. We don't have to go into this, but yeah, that's an interesting idea. Okay. Quick updates. ENS grant, the small grant from ENS, I think it's not going to happen. We still have like 19 hours or something like that, 20 hours, but the big whales have come in, and we would have to have some big whale come in. We're just so close. We're like number 6 out of 5, but we'll see. Strategic framework is up on Snapshot. Looks like we'll probably get quorum. Thanks everybody for voting on that. And yeah. So let's dive into the first topic, which is just communication priorities. We were going to talk about this last week, but really specifically around Twitter for the next month or two. These were some kind of placeholder thoughts about what we focus on, and I just wanted to throw this out and get people's perspective. So once our the small grant program starts up in late March, early April, we'll be wanting to do a lot of communications around that on Twitter, I think. And then Selling Point Initiative, the curation of the topics, particularly on reputation, but also the events like the Twitter Spaces. That seems like another priority. And then material from the Share It channel curation, and just that's kind of, just keeping that going. And then partners. So I'll start there and just throw it open to the group for comments, questions.
That sounds interesting. Also, I was thinking these days to maybe implement more education to our socials. I was playing the other day with ChatGTP. I was never expecting those results that I see, because I was not too positive with those platforms. As an artist, I feel like they are stealing our jobs and something like that. But with that kind of platforms, I think that I can make very good results with tweets. The other day, I was looking for what is token engineering, what is voting course, all that stuff, and that helped me a lot to get more new ideas. We can make new threads and that stuff. And yeah, I was thinking like making something educational on Twitter, maybe a day, bringing back the token engineering Tuesdays. And yeah, and with help of Martin, I think that we can get a really good job, especially because he does a really good job with the creation service threads. But yeah, I think that there are very good ideas with those points to get in.
Yeah, I would say that when it comes to communication priorities, we have a bunch of different areas where we need to have communications surrounding. One is proposals. The other is the research groups and interest groups, and even just having current events being touched upon. That are token engineering related. I think the introduction of based by Coinbase, building on the OP stack is a really interesting topic that, these things involve token engineering and have certain attributes, whether it's, IBC and all this other stuff that we can talk on that are kind of hot topic issues. But my comments are centered around this idea of process that we have for this, because I know that you're managing it all right now, and so figuring out a way to kind of have kind of open documents around these different topical areas to where people can contribute when they have an idea or thought process that goes through that. It would be really nice to have just a document that I can go to and say, hey, here's the agenda for next week's Twitter Spaces. I would like to promote that on the Thursday prior, or here's when we're meeting. Here's just kind of a shout out to have these kind of things scheduled in. And so I think establishing a communications process is going to be a huge priority for the different initiatives that we have, communication initiative. So I think that would be really nice to develop as soon as we can, so other people can help craft Twitter's tweets. And I know I'm reading Marathon Minds, one on the ABC right now. See, these things are really good. I think they're positive, and if we have more of those things, and you can be focused on kind of editing and making sure that the message is clear and that that they're pushed out on a timely manner, I think that is a really good focus for the comms section of it. So those are just my thoughts around it.
I think we have to be careful and because I haven't been on top of communications or anything Twitter for some time now. But Twitter is for us, or Twitter in general, is a game of attention and engagement, and the more we seek for it, the least we have it probably. And so we have to be very. I think first we have to be very intelligent with which things do we sort of accept as appropriate to be sharing, or good enough to be shared, because we may want to share something that's just not going to work, and that's going to damage the whole TEC profile for any other bits that may be more important. And the other thing that I think it's important that happens is more collaboration. That's something when I was a bit more on top of Twitter, that's something I tried a bit. I tried different post formats or the weekly calendar and all of that, and we took advantage of the network of others. So the academy was constantly retweeting stuff from us because we were serving as as the shelling point for the TE, and so all the other projects who are or who have a bit more engaging activities, where we were sort of taking advantage of that. But that said, I think we have to be careful with the Giveth Galaxy. Like, I don't think it's a priority on our communications, because I don't think, all said, as always, all love for the Giveth Galaxy. It's just that I don't think it's the same how do you say it? The same users, that interact with Giveth are not the same users that we want to have on, or that are in DT, that they're a bit more technical, a bit more I don't know if academic, if you like, but not necessarily all in for the Giveth image. And so we have to be careful about that and respect that.
Yeah, I think I also agree with what everyone is saying. I think we need to start becoming a little bit more strategic in the way we approach communications, I think, and also in the way we organize ourselves towards that, like the processes, like Nate was saying. I think we also probably don't have to overcomplicated right now. I think that's something we've all been learning recently, like simplifying things, keeping it really minimal, but trying to do it effective and then improving it over time. I think that should continue the way we do things. And I think we can apply that to communications, like really come up with really concrete actions that we can take to, yes, become more strategic, but not make it too complicated. And some of that can be maybe just, like scheduling, having maybe some planning in advance, maybe a month in advance for how we want to have Twitter look like. We can start organizing the different type of posts, the different type of initiatives that we want to support, distribute them throughout the weeks, throughout the days, that everyone knows where can they access this calendar so they can propose, they can suggest things, maybe even just to have a document where we start defining the different formats of tweets that we're going to have. If it's educational tweets, that's one. If it's promotional tweets towards the Twitter Spaces, that's some sort of other format. Like really clarifying this and putting it on a doc so everyone knows that, and everyone can start collaborating as well in the creation of this material, right? But I think with this type of actions, we could start kind of like being better organized. I feel. I think like what you have here in the agenda, Gideon, of the different items that need communication support. I think that's an initial step, right? Now we probably could take those and plan for March. The different supporting efforts that we need to provide to those initiatives. So yeah, I just think that we need to become more strategic, better processes, but keeping it simple.
And I do want to add that the most effective tweets that I've seen within the token engineering space have been ones that engage the users around questions. And so we can have these educational style tweets where it says, hey, what is the best use of soulbound tokens you've ever seen, and have the community engage on that. I think getting the token engineering community engaged on specific topics is probably the best way to get eyeballs on the TEC and the commons in general, whether it be us or our partners. Just having these types of questions are really important in my opinion.
I'll add one thing to that. These are all great comments, by the way. So one thing that Nate and I have been talking about with the reputation side of things is that we have an opportunity here to actually build out like a cluster of people who are very passionate about reputation, and really giving them a home on Twitter as a place where they can build connections with each other around content. And sure, there may be other places who are doing work on reputation, but I haven't quite seen it yet. And I think that as a general strategy, rather than going really broad, picking some niches, focusing there, building some relationships with like maybe not the most famous people around reputation, but the next tier down, like the people who are hungry to build their reputation on Twitter, and helping them to do so through the TEC by getting them to contribute articles and to jump in on conversations and things like that. I think we can do some tests around reputation that will help us build the network topic by topic. So that's one other thing to just be thinking about. Any other? So it sounds like if I were to go back up here, what the summary would be. Yeah, probably we need some more process and planning. Don't overdo it, but just like get some structure about what kinds of things we want to tweet. Figure out a way. Be careful about overdoing it, because attention is a valuable commodity. Like, we have to be careful if we overdo it and are too spammy, we're gonna turn people away and they won't engage. And also, just, I think everybody knows this, but like, you know, the algorithm, I think, has gotten more sensitive over the last couple of years. Like, if you're not tweeting regularly and if you're not getting a lot of engagement, the algorithm just basically kind of tunes you out. So getting engagement gets more engagement. Sounds obvious, but like, I think it really is important for us to build conversation and build conversation. That's how the algorithm will start to notice us. Any other closing points before we move on? 5.
I think just one more point to add. I think it would also be important to start maybe paying more attention to metrics and to actual results on Twitter. I remember, I don't know if it was Acid or NT at some point, that they would provide some sort of like update or report about the most successful tweets and how they behave during time, you know. So I feel that all of that insights should be becoming more relevant right now. So actually help us in taking more informed decisions in regards what type of content are we posting, what is working, what is not working, how should we change it, you know. So I feel like again, probably coming up with some sort of a more clear and structured process for gathering and for sharing results and metrics in regards with social media. I think that'd be important.
Okay, so how about this? On Thursday, let's follow up on this and specifically focus on 2 things. One is the processes that we need to use to basically to how we're going to improve our process, and then the other is how we're going to measure. Does that sound okay? Does that sound like a good idea? Anything else we want to?
Can you be more?
Can you repeat that?
On Thursday this week, we have a follow-up conversation focused on process improvements, like the planning / process improvements that we want to make, and then also the metrics we want to put in place. Sound okay? Okay. All right. All right. Good conversation. Thanks, everybody. All right. So, okay. I want to, I don't know how long this will take. Maybe it won't take that long. But I'm trying to keep our coordination team funding proposal for season 2 shorter than they've been in the past. And the basic structure of it is as follows. Basically focusing on the priorities for this season, the outcomes from last season, and then the primary benefits we are expecting to provide to the community and to the commons. And then there's actual what success looks like. So I think I'll save the what success looks like until maybe Thursday. But what I would like to get your feedback on today is the priorities. We've talked about some of this, but I've distilled it down, and I want to run this by you all. And then if we have time, focusing on the 3 benefits. So the priorities, and these are basically kind of a way of aggregating and focusing our activities. So the first one is facilitate the Token Engineering Academy's exit to Commons. And we are the Commons in this case, obviously. 2, revitalize public goods funding with a TEC small grants program. Then 3 is support the token engineering stakeholder study. 4 is build foundations for a token engineering knowledge commons. And 5 is strengthen processes for scalable, accountable engagement with the TEC. So, one of the things, Nate, you may be wondering is, well, where's the SPI? I'm trying to frame that. What I'm trying to do here, and so this is part of what I want to get you all your feedback on, is keeping this like really focused on like some big goals for us. And so the SPI, I'm kind of framing that in here as the beginnings of the knowledge commons, and laying the investments there. So, so that's the thing I want to get some feedback on. It's like, are these priorities? Do these seem right? Is this a good way to describe what we're doing?
I think that's what matters when it comes to the funding proposal and when it comes to messaging for this token holders. Yeah, the token engineering knowledge commons is the product that we're trying to develop here, and the interest groups and the research groups are kind of secondary to that. I think they're a core part of the inputs to that knowledge commons, but I don't have any problems with the messaging. I think that's a really good, concise way of looking at the SPI, is just saying, hey, this is the method that we're using to develop the knowledge commons, which is our focus and priority.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts from people? Five, 4, 3, 2.
There's I don't know exactly how I feel about it, about including or not including something to do with revenues. That's probably not for this season, but for next. But I do have started to feel again that some sort of like urgency of paying attention to that issue a little bit more, and a lot of it was thanks to Isaac for raising that. I'm just thinking about the length for this season, that is 4 months. That's gonna take us all the way to the end of July, right? I think. So just considering that, like we're in August and we maybe haven't started to do much of a formal work in terms of revenues. Would that be okay, or should we start maybe sooner? I don't know. This is more of an open question that I'm also trying to answer myself, right? So I just wanted to raise that point, and maybe you've thought about this and you have some sort of opinion on that. So I'd be curious to know that.
Yeah. It's the thing that's becoming clear to me is, as we're thinking about this, we need to think about token utility, and we need to think about revenue. And sometimes those things can be the same. Like if we're taking revenues in TEC, sometimes they're not the same. And right now, the thing that I think our shortest path to getting token utility is through the academy, and really trying to get like our best services as a combined unit right now are around education, and also the people who are coming out of the education services, like helping them to get job placements. I think that that's probably our, over the course of this year, our most likely way of seeing some token utility and maybe some revenues. That's my thinking. So it's kind of tied to the academy. I do think that there's some things that we can be doing, like the reason for the push on the knowledge commons is that I think if we can really prove that, like if we had a cutting edge, like really great library of like the latest, greatest content coming out of the token engineering community, and you knew that like this would be the place to come and get it, and it was well curated, that's probably worth some money as well, some type of either token gated access to the library that requires holding the token, or maybe even some type of subscription. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point. That's just where I'm at right now. Is I feel like our best bet is focusing on the academy and doing that integration, and making sure that we do that in a way that is going to make both sustainable. But it's a good point. Like maybe part of what we've got to be doing is bringing back the matching service as soon as possible. There are issues with that in terms of demand. We don't have a lot of people in the community right now.
I just want to say I generally agree with everything you just said in terms of the academy being our shortest path to generating revenue / utility for the TEC token. However, when it comes to like just figuring out ways to create revenue for the sake of creating revenue as quickly as possible, I don't think that is the goal for us right now. I really do think that we have to establish the foundations for long-term token utility and consistent streams of revenue, and that means focusing on the things that may take a little bit longer, and that's the curation service. That means the academy. That means the grants program. I think these are the things that we have decided as a priority, and they hold the most potential to bring us consistent and sustainable economic revenue over the long term. I do think things like having a token engineering conference are potential sources of revenue that could be maybe like a year from now if we start thinking about it soon. I think this is really, really important, but also that it's not something that we should divert our attention from to satisfy the rest of the TEC token holders. We really need to just focus on the things that are going to make a lasting impression here in the TEC, and that means the priorities we've established so far. I'm just afraid if we start thinking about how to generate revenue in any type of way that is short term and maybe one off, then we're distracting ourselves from the real purpose of why we're here and what we should be doing and focusing on.
Yeah, I agreeing on that. I think I also share that view, and I do think that if we're able to move all of these different initiatives forward, maybe in a medium long term, new possibilities and opportunities will start raising. Like this idea that I think it's really great, of becoming some sort of regranter, and getting funds from other foundations or other communities to be able to kind of like be the administrators of that funds and start allocating to public goods. For example, I feel that would be closer to achieve if we are able to deliver on these priorities that we are setting as the foundational basis, right? So it was, I guess, just some sort of concern, that you just sometimes look at the common pool constantly decreasing, and knowing that more and more proposals keep coming on, and you just I just hope that the funds last enough for us to be able to make all of this work, right? So it was coming from that kind of like concern space for me.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I agree with you. Yeah, I think well, our our best opportunity in the short term, and actually, let me tell you, Angela is like really focused on this also. So I think our best bet in the next couple months is really working with Angela and crew to think about how we pull off an integrated economy between the academy and the commons, where value is starting to flow. She's super focused on this. I'm really focused on this right now too, just thinking about that. So yeah. But it's I mean I agree, and I think it's actually I still think the regranter thing fits with our strategy. It's going to require some focus on reputation and incentives and like balancing the way the way that we vote to include some type of expertise, probably, as in addition to just having a lot of tokens. So there will be some work to getting the regranter thing going. So I think I think we should kind of like keep in mind this idea of the match, like the matchmaking service. That would take a lot of work, but probably not a bad path for the fall. So let's just keep. Let's not forget this question for sure. All right. Are there any more thoughts on this before we move on to the next topic? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, next topic. Conviction voting. As Juanca mentioned, we have some proposals that are going to be coming through, particularly the stakeholder study. That one's going to be coming through like probably in the next 2 days. And then we're going to have the small grants proposal. We'll probably have like a very small one that is the small grants like test fund, which is probably just like $5,000. And then there's the full small grants program that Isaac's going to be pulling together the proposal for. And then there's our funding proposal for the coordination team. So all of these things are going to be coming through in the next month or so. And so getting the timing of when we turn conviction voting off, getting that right, is going to be super important. I think these are all things that can be passed with TAO voting. Like I think we could probably pass all these things with TAO voting. Here's my gut. My gut sense is I don't know what to do with the stakeholder study because they're ready to go with this. But I think that the small grants test fund, I think we should just push through with conviction voting as quickly as possible because it's small. I think that the other ones, the coordination team and the small grants program, I think we should probably wait till we get the TAO voting up and running. That's my gut sense. But I would love to hear it from other people.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the stakeholder thing. I'd have to look more into it. But if they're looking for funding right away, that's I don't know. Yeah, TAO voting needs to go through kind of a trial period. I know Olivia made some comments on the document about creating a separate instance of TAO voting for funding proposals that don't interfere with the agreed upon parameters that we set for smart contract upgrades with the TAO voting that we currently have. So it may take some time if we want to do this properly, but if we want to use TAL voting to push these other funding proposals through, I don't see a problem with it. It's a tough question because there's a lot of aspects of shutting off the conviction voting that we in the know have a good understanding of, but we outside of the people in the know, we're going to have to do a little bit more kind of PR work, little communications about this, because I have a feeling that this is not going to go over well with some people the way we think they are. Think it's going to happen, and so it might take a little bit longer than it needs to. So yeah, I don't know. And if we just start passing funding proposals through TAL voting, that might be an issue for some. But I just wanted to throw that concern out there as well.
It's not good.
I also think that we reduced a lot the operations in the TEC, and somehow these proposals can help to support again the development of certain products in the TEC. For example, I think that this stakeholder study is something that is super important for the T field. So I feel the proposal would advance on the field, but at the same time, I agree with the sense of like, okay, we are funding proposals, including from my point of view gravity, and how or what are we getting back as the TC from the funded proposals. So I also think maybe it would be good to think if there's something that we can ask proposals that go through conviction voting, like for example having the TC logo in their branding, or I don't know, yeah, this has been like a question we have been thinking for a long time, and we still don't have a right answer. That eventually the projects they develop the field, but in resources we give more than what we receive as a community, and yeah, that's something very related to the first Ostrom's rule of appropriation and provision. And what we are seeing is that there's more appropriation of the resource than provision. So how can we like provide more so that the resource doesn't become more scarce by the usage? Because we also don't want to like raise the restraints of access to the resource, so that it's so difficult for us to even do what we intend to do of funding projects that advance the TE field. So yeah, I don't think that raising the constraints for projects to be funded is the right answer, but focusing on how to provide more to the service, to the resource.
So with Blanca, I agree and I disagree, because I do think that a part of Ostrom's is setting up boundaries to the commons for appropriation purposes, because to this point we haven't set any boundaries, and we still haven't. Anybody is allowed to come in and propose and pass their proposals with almost zero resistance. If it's mildly token engineering related, we allow it, and for me that is not great. I really do think that we have to have expectations of what is being funded and have it fit within the alignment and priorities of the commons. We don't have a robust economy yet. When we do, then I don't have a problem with the restraints. But right now, I think we should have more restraints placed on it, on the common pool. And I think that the proposal process is something that we should really focus on developing, and making sure that, they go through this process where, is this a priority? Is this something that the Token Engineering Commons can see a direct return for the benefit of token engineering? And if the answer is no, then we shouldn't be funding it. And so I agree, but I also disagree in the short term, because we just don't have the funds to actually just fund every single, the first token engineering proposal that comes up. We have to be more selective and more restrictive of who has access to these funds. And yeah, I just wanted to give my thoughts on that as well.
If I may, on the whole conviction voting topic, first thing, I would like everyone to take some time to go through the configuration dashboard. I'll send the link over here, because on Thursday, I would like to see people sort of propose parameters on Thursday. You can think of that as a kind of informal params party, just to see which would be the most appropriate for. I just don't know if the current Tau voting's parameters are the best for also funding. I don't think that should be an issue, in because we have to avoid overcomplicating it. Because honestly, all DAOs use a single way of voting for both DAO changes in funding, and so I don't think I think that's just being that's just overcomplicating stuff. We should be fine with Tau voting, and we don't have time to waste for honestly, if I'm being frank, we don't have time to waste for people that aren't even engaged. Um we not only have quite a few people sort of in line with proposal to post. We have also commitments with, I don't know, Gitcoin in this case, and all of that, and we have to get this moving. And so even if it were for me, I would just go ahead and do all the proposals as possible through Talboting right now. Just because it is possible anyways, and that would get us some training while we finish, sort of setting up all the conviction voting thing. And anyways, and it's, if we can agree on some parameters this or next week, that's going to take a second to set up the voting and then just change everything. So I don't know. And I'm just referring to the technical side. There's obviously some social consensus and whatnot that needs to happen, but that needs to happen. That needs to happen as soon as possible, because we don't really have time. I don't know about the stakeholder analysis, like if they can wait or not, but we have to move it.
I agree with the urgency of it, but I do dissent against the idea that the parameter changes shouldn't be prioritized, because right now the minimum quorum, the support required, and the vote duration, 5 days for a funding proposal, and you could have something like a 50K funding proposal that gets passed in 5 days with minimal support and minimum quorum, and I just don't think that is appropriate for funding decisions. I really do think that the idea that having a separate instance is really important to implement, if we can do that for funding, because right now it's one of those things where this was collectively decided on by the TEC community when we first we first initiated the voting instances, and this is something that we're saying, okay, that all that param parties and all those debates that we had about how this was going to work, it was completely meaningless. And so I think that this is something that we really have to get community approval for, and something that funding was not the primary use case for the TAL voting. It just wasn't, and it wasn't designed for that. And so I do think this needs to be resolved. But I do agree with the urgency of getting these proposals passed, which is the hard part.
I I agree there needs to be a community consensus, but we have to like first things first. Everything changes, and so what we thought would be what the assumptions under which those parameters were chosen in conviction voting, all of that doesn't hold true anymore because we are thinking of turning off conviction voting. And the reality is, Aragon wasn't even made for conviction voting. That was made later as a separate application. And you go to any other DAO, and they use the same voting. So we have to stop being so like we have to stop trying to complicate everything just because we like the more we can simplify the better, and everyone uses a single type of on-chain vote on any single DAO, honestly. So we may as well just do that, have everything more simple, more straight up, and just go ahead. Like, anyways, if I just don't think it's worth by any means to have two separate um, instances, because instances are usually around money. And so what we would happen is probably we have one instance with tile voting super complicated, like with a super complicated configuration of tile voting that sends money to another instance that has a lower quorum. And that's a design that Aragon is working on, but Aragon has more than $10 million, and so they are planning to have um, a more robust instance with higher requirements for all the funds, and then they're just going to fund a smaller DAO um, for simple, for I guess day-to-day stuff. We cannot compare that, and I don't know. I just think um, for the amount of engagement we have and everything, we have to be very careful of not overcomplicating stuff, because as it is hard to pass anything. Now imagine two separate instances and a whole bunch of stuff for $500,000. I don't know.
So we are at the top of the hour. We're actually a minute over. We're not going to resolve this today. I think, Isaac, what would be great is if you can provide folks with a little bit more guidance on what you would like them to look at in the config dashboard with the DAO voting. Like maybe just provide. You and I can brainstorm. I'm happy to brainstorm with you a little bit later today or tomorrow. And so we can just like get people doing some experiments. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is I do think it would be worth just touching base and looking what other DAOs are doing in terms of voting on proposals, like how they're using DAO voting for that, what their parameters are, so that we can just, learn from others as we switch to a different model. So I don't think we're quite here yet with actually having the specific proposal for, like for where we need to go next. So on Thursday, I think this is another topic we need to follow up on. And Isaac and Nate, it would be great if let's just set up a little side conversation to tee us up and get the conversation ready to go on Thursday so that we go into it with the best information that we have. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, super complicated. There's a lot of things starting to move right now, man. It feels good, but at the same time, it's like, oh shit. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for engaging. Great contributions, and have a good rest of your day/night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See y'all. Bye.
Thank you.